Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is just such a fabulous room, and thank goodness the sun is shining, and such a fabulous turnout, as Don said. Don mentioned our new strategic plan, Engaging for Impact, and I hope that you've read about it. I hope you've heard about it. We've tried to really communicate a lot about it since we launched it in July. But as he said, kind of the through line of all the strategies of the strategic plan is about more intentional listening, to have you all help shape the work of Donors Forum and to extend our reach. So in addition to this being the first nonprofit summit, it is also the first in another way. We are live streaming this program. It's the first time we've had a webcast of any of our programs, so we're really kind of excited about coming into the 21st century. And we also hope that this means that members who couldn't be with us today can participate, and it helps us extend our reach throughout the state. And we also will be doing a lot of social media on the program. You'll see the hashtag for tweeting, and I suspect there'll be a lot of tweeting going on, and please do so. Before I get too far into my remarks, I want us to reflect a moment on the disaster that hit individuals, families, and communities across central Illinois. And we know there are some people who couldn't be with us today. I particularly want to call out to Senator Dave Keeler, who is with us today, whose district, Dave, Senator, where are you? Anyway, he's here. It encompasses East Peoria and Pekin, and I think it's just great that he could take the time to be with us today. But I also think that what's going on now is a great demonstration of the theme of today's program, which is all about a partnership between nonprofit organizations, funders who make those nonprofits able to do their work, and government. So we've got local nonprofits and volunteers on the ground. They've been supported by a myriad of foundations, community foundations, corporate foundations, independent foundations, and individuals, of course, and we rely heavily on our first responders and the state to really take the leadership for the long recovery process. So our hearts and prayers go out to all those affected by these tornadoes. I'd also like to echo Don's appreciation of the critical and sustained support of the Wallace Foundation, which has really helped to build Donors Forum's internal capacity as well as our external leadership in the policy realm. They've been a true partner in this work, and Polly, I hope you will take that message back to your colleagues with whom we work at the Wallace Foundation and to your board of directors. So thank you very much once again. And I'd also like to thank the MB Financial for their sponsorship of this event and, in fact, all the ways that the team at MB Financial supports our work as our banking partner. And Vicki Arroyo from the MB Financial Charitable Foundation is with us today, and I want to thank them all for their support around this important event. My special welcome to Governor Edgar and to all the members of the General Assembly who are with us, and especially those that agreed to be part of the panel and to really engage with us in dialogue about how we can strengthen this partnership. And Senator Staines and I will be introducing them all a little later in the program. And as Don mentioned, we have a very diverse audience here today, and that is by design, but it is also about who Donors Forum is and who we represent. And this summit is all about how we can engage every player in this room to strengthen the three-way partnership, or that's what we call it, between state government, philanthropies, and nonprofits in order to support and serve the residents in our state. And we believe Illinois is well served by this partnership model. And in fact, the people of Illinois are best served when we all work collaboratively to address challenges and the critical needs in our communities according to our own individual missions. There is little doubt that nonprofits are already critical partners with state government when it comes to providing services and programs to the people in Illinois, whether it's in education, healthcare, human services, the arts, or protecting the environment. And the grant makers contribute significantly to the health and sustainability of those nonprofit partners and support important research as well as the research and development of promising and best practices that benefit the state. But despite that long-standing partnership and that deep partnership as well. What we've learned is that the partners don't always understand each other very well. We've heard this over and over again when we talk with nonprofits and grant makers across the state and when we meet with legislators in Springfield or in their home districts. The intent of this nonprofit summit today is to be a step toward deepening that understanding and then creating an action agenda and priorities that will shape the hard work necessary for that partnership to yield results that will better serve people and communities throughout Illinois. While we've been engaged in this work for almost 5 years, we've just only recently rebranded it to be Building a Stronger Illinois, the public-nonprofit partnership. The description of this initiative is in the back of that very colorful program that you've got, but I want to call your attention to the dynamic website that provides important data and information about our sector in every legislative district and census tract throughout the state, as well as all 77 communities in Chicago. Please check out the website when you get back and share it with other people within your organization. The data in this website are just the initial building blocks that will leverage other strands of our work to not only strengthen the partnership between nonprofits, philanthropies, and government, but also to dramatically improve the operating environment for nonprofits doing business with the state. So I said the first goal today is to start building greater understanding of the partners here today. What are the elements of that understanding? What is it we really have to enhance in terms of really building more effective partnerships with philanthropies, nonprofits, and government? So here are a couple thoughts. One is an understanding of the way nonprofits operate and how they raise funds, which almost never come exclusively from government, but rather include a mix of funding sources, public and private. This is one reason why the mix of funders in the room is so important here today. Public funding is an important lever of private support and vice versa for nonprofit sustainability. We need a better understanding that the funding capabilities of private funders is so dwarfed by public sector resources in spite of the many constraints on those public sector resources. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from elected officials, oh, we'll let private philanthropy take care of that. Well, consider this statistic. In 2011, the Illinois General Revenue Fund was at $27.4 billion. Illinois Foundation giving was at $2.6 billion. And a lot of that we know goes outside of the state of Illinois. So less than 10% at best. We need a better understanding and appreciation of the value of that nonprofits add to Illinois, and not only in terms of social impact, but in economic impact as well. Back to our Building a Stronger Illinois website, this contains the most comprehensive data on the size and the scope of the sector and offers ample evidence of the economic impact and contribution we as a sector make to the state economy. Charitable nonprofits employ more than 523,000 people in Illinois, which is nearly 9% of the total state workforce. In fact, nonprofits employ more people in our state than the transportation, construction, and real estate industries combined. Collectively, these 14,000 Illinois nonprofits have a combined payroll of just under $20 billion. And wages are an important multiplier of economic activity in communities. People spend where they live and work. Organizations purchase where they're located. This means that nonprofits are more than just community assets, they are also economic engines in their own right. Finally, as it relates to nonprofits, we need a shared understanding of the policy and regulatory challenges that nonprofits face when they do business with the state, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But since this is a partnership, many nonprofits and philanthropies would benefit from a greater understanding of the challenges that government faces, and these might include how lawmakers make tough appropriation decisions, especially when they are faced with tremendous budget challenges in a fiscal condition in our state that is dire. It's excruciating to pit education funding versus human services versus funding for the arts and the environment and infrastructure. We need a greater understanding of the ways in which state agencies often operate in legacy silos with little opportunity to collaborate or to share information through computer systems that aren't always integrated. And we need an understanding that state government has lost over 4,000 jobs in the past 5 years, and over 2,300 of those have been in the human service organizations. So Illinois is one of the leanest state governments in the country, and so the state's capacity to carry out its own mandates, much less be a more responsive business partner to nonprofits, as well as an engine for its own research and development, has been severely hampered. Our second goal is to begin to identify specific actionable opportunities to improve our working relationship and to serve residents in our state. I don't need to tell anybody in this room that the state faces tremendous fiscal and budget challenges. And when we hosted our state budget forum in April, we could have spent the whole day, if not more than a day, discussing the budget predicament, the fiscal, tax, and pension reforms that are critical, and the current as well as future impact that all of this, if not solved, will have on nonprofit organizations. But what we want to do today is not to focus on the budget, although I can't imagine it won't somehow come up in the conversation, but to look instead at the ripple effect and to the future implications of that, continued implications for our sector, and to try to get to some solutions that are in our grasp. There's a sense among some that nonprofits are a drain on the state, only turning up when they want funding or are demanding to be paid. True or not, this is a very narrow view of our sector and what it is capable of. And while budget decisions tend to focus more directly on the human service provider part of our sector, the truth is that all these deep structural problems we have in Illinois crowd out funding for all the enterprise activity of nonprofit organizations across the sector. The reality is that nonprofits and their private funding partners have tremendous expertise and resources and the ability to offer community solutions to our most challenging problems. Private grant makers bring decades of experience working with their nonprofit partners in developing outcomes so that they can measure the effectiveness of their work. This is work that the public sector has only come to more recently. It's incumbent upon our sector to more proactively engage in the policymaking process, to offer up new ideas, to educate about proven evidence-based successes, and to demonstrate a willingness to try new approaches, and to embrace principles of effectiveness, transparency, and accountability as we are stewards of public and private resources. And policymakers need to take better advantage of the expertise that exists in our sector and the community resources that we all represent as they wrestle with new solutions to meeting the state's needs. The third goal is that we will be inviting all of you to continue the work that we've started at Donors Forum in developing a draft set of policy principles to support the nonprofit sector here in Illinois. These include public policy concerns that we can collectively address to help create an environment where nonprofits can effectively and efficiently fulfill their mission and serve their communities, and that the investments of private funders can be sustained. We've set aside time later on in the program for table-to-table conversations, and we need to hear from you about your perspective of the challenges and also some of the solutions that you think are in our reach. And I'll say more about that when I introduce that section. So all of this feels really daunting. And you're probably asking, given all these problems, given all these challenges, given the resources that we do have, why is it that Donors Forum feels that a day like today, we can come out with some ideas about a more sustained effort to improve the partnership that can really yield positive results for all the partners engaged in this work? And the simple answer to that is that it already has, but it may be one of the best kept secrets of our sector. And we need to articulate and celebrate our victories while at the same time acknowledge that so much more needs to be and can be done. At the foundation of our now Building a Stronger Illinois initiative is the work we started in 2009 with support from the Wallace Foundation, which was called the Public Nonprofit Partnership Initiative. This work was initially focused on streamlining the extremely onerous contracting and reporting processes that existed as the defining relationship between the state and primarily human service organizations. In 2010, we published Fair and Accountable, Partnership Principles for a Sustainable Human Services System, and have spent the last several years actually putting these into operation. And while these principles came out of discussions primarily, if not exclusively, around human service providers and the state, these fairness principles, these accountability principles, really apply to any contract and grant process in the state, or at least they should. The following are some of the key principles and practices that are called for in the report, very briefly. Comprehensive planning to determine what services need to be available where. Transparent processes for selected service providers or grantees. Performance-based contract renewals that are based on performance and consumer best interest. Fair and timely payment for services. That one it kind of eludes us, I'm afraid. Streamlined reporting to eliminate waste in reporting and monitoring. And better communication among government agencies with providers and to the public. And these are more than just principles that have been printed on a page in the Orange Book. Through legislation passed by the General Assembly in 2011, 5 state agencies led by the Department of Human Services were asked to come together to streamline their contracting and reporting requirement for nonprofit providers. Donors Forum provided the facilitative leadership in the form of a very talented consultant to the Management Improvement Initiative Committee, and there are a number of people from that committee, both from state agencies as well as providers that are with us here today. And their work resulted in the following successes to benefit not only the nonprofit providers, but the state agencies themselves, since they have lost so many staff. There is now a centralized repository vault that enables providers to submit their documentations for contracts to the state once, rather than multiple times. And this is really a big deal, and I think I really want to make a shout out to Judith Gethner there she is, from the Illinois Partners of Human Services, and Jack Kaplan from the United Way, there's Jack, who along with a very dedicated group of providers worked with the state team to hammer out how to get to these processes. There is now a common chart of accounts agreed to across those 5 state agencies. There are improved contracting processes and some streamlined content. There is a reduction of on-site fiscal and administrative compliance reviews for those providers that meet criteria for low risk. Clearly, there's probably a lot more work that needs to be done to make these improvements penetrate throughout those 5 state agencies and out into the community. But these successes demonstrate that the nonprofit sector and government can effectively work together on commonly agreed to objectives, and that is very promising. In the same vein as our streamlining work, the work Donors Forum has done to ensure that the provider perspective was built into the budgeting for results implementation processes has yielded some good results with the help of a lot of people. We issued a national scan of best practices in state and local government in pay-for-performance budgeting processes. That report was delivered to the governor's office, and many of the recommendations have been included in the Budgeting for Results Commission's strategic plan. And after this summit, we will be issuing a second report detailing the results of a pilot study we undertook to illustrate a model of effective outcomes development, which potentially could be scaled for BFR outcomes implementation. It involved 2 youth programs of the Department of Human Services, and together, state agency staff and provider staff successfully hammered out a process that got them to agreed upon outcomes for these programs. This report has also been provided to the governor's office as a model of partnership in the critical outcome development part of BFR implementation. So our 5 years in this work, coupled with our active advocacy to protect the missions and the operations of nonprofits, and to promote our sector's impact and value, and to demonstrate that we are constructive yet critical partners to state government, leads me to be really optimistic about all the ways that this audience will identify new and promising practices to strengthen the work in which we are all engaged and deliver on the promise and the potential of a more collaborative and partnership framework for our interaction. We have a great group of sector and government leaders with us today, and I know you will give us many ideas, and I know we have a great group of speakers who I know will also give us ideas, but also inspiration for how we can all come together more significantly and more effectively around this work. So with that, I would like to transition to welcoming Governor Edgar to this event today. This is a person who doesn't really need any introduction to this audience, and you have his full bio in the program that is in front of you, so my introduction will be rather brief. Governor Edgar has had a rather amazing history in public service at the state level. He was elected governor in 1990. He inherited a state teetering on bankruptcy with a debt of $1 billion. Wouldn't that be nice if it were only $1 billion? And he restored fiscal stability and integrity to Illinois, leaving the office with a surplus of $1.5 billion. He is currently a distinguished fellow at the University of Illinois Institute of Government and Public Affairs and leads the Edgar's Fellows Program, which focuses on leadership development for up-and-coming public and private leaders. So we look forward to hearing your perspective, Governor, on ways to strengthen the state's relationship with the nonprofit sector and some insights into probably how you did it when you were governor. Thank you very much.